It was Easter Sunday, and we'd gone for a walk, me, my mum and dad, and my two brothers were being naughty and didn't want to come, so we went on a walk. And it was like, we parked in Tissington. Is that the place it's called? The one just after Cork Abbey. And then we'd gone on a walk. We'd not been on this walk before, and so it was quite interesting. So we walked along. It was very like peaty kind of mud, that kind of nice mud that is quite soft and fun. It looks like you're going to get covered in mud, but even if your foot sinks all the way and it doesn't get covered, it's like, oh, lovely, lovely. And so yeah, we found a forest, and it was quite overgrown. People hadn't been in and managed the woods, and so there was a lot of debris all around, and like the forest floor was quite deep with stuff. And we were looking around because me and my mum are both arty, and we found a silver birch tree which had fallen over and decayed, and so there was lots of bark everywhere. But one of the branches the whole branch had decayed, but the whole of the bark was still intact in a whole cylinder, and it was incredible. It was like, yeah, just like a cylinder, like it was too small to fit on a wrist, but you could see how you could have made it into bracelets or made it into a vase, and in such a perfect way. And I'm not sure you could ever create that on purpose. And so that was intense. And we both, me and my mum both were like, I need this. This is mine. And I got it in the end. So a couple of years ago, I cycled around the UK. It was just before I'd started uni and just after I'd finished college, and so I was looking at what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be and how I wanted to look, maybe how I wanted to dress. And throughout this time of visiting those different cities, I visited lots of different types of places, and these gave me ideas of what's the community that I want to be part of. And there was a large variety. I went from squats to co-ops to student houses to family houses, and all of the kinds of communities that you have within cities, and the kind of communities my friends were part of. And I started to think about what I looked like and what I wanted to look like. And when I kind of started, there was a lot more free clothing, it was quite thin, like silks, and with the hippie genre. And I think over that period of 3 or 4 months that I was cycling, I started to maybe not reject, but reinvent that style into something that was more, it was still colourful, but not as appropriative of Indian culture. And I think that was because of the when I was hanging out with these people, I was like, I don't actually have much in common with these people, and so why have I decided this is my community when it's not? And so then I started to look for different clothes, and as well, being on this bike tour, I didn't have much space to carry anything, so I did only really have one outfit, or like variations of that same outfit, which gets incredibly boring. I don't know how, you don't really realise how often you change your clothes in general life, but wearing the same clothes over and over, it does start to take its toll. And so I was looking for new clothes, and previous to this bike tour, I don't think I'd bought new clothes from like normal shops for probably about 5 years. And so I generally bought in charity shops. People handed me their clothes. I bought stuff from like white people hippie shops and festivals. And so this whole realm of like proper shops was very unfamiliar, which was quite nice. But I was thinking, no, I want some clothes. So I had looked around a lot of charity shops, and in my head there was mustard yellow corduroy trousers. That was the goal. And I didn't wear trousers. I hadn't worn trousers from about 2008. I kind of, yeah, wore trousers 2008, but then from 2008 to 2014, I kind of didn't wear trousers. That I wore skirts and tights and colourful dresses and silky harem trousers and things. So I hadn't worn anything that was fitted on my legs for like 5 years, 5 or 6 years. And so this was a whole new exploration. And yeah, I'm not sure where the mustard yellow corduroy came in, but I knew I needed it. And I'd been cycling around the whole of the UK, going into every charity shop that I could, trying to find yellow trousers, and they just never materialised. But then I was in Glasgow, which was the last stop on the tour. It was December the 4th, I think, and it got dark incredibly early. It just seemed to be dark the whole time I was in Glasgow. I don't really remember the light, and I think there was about 4 hours of daylight most of the days that day. And I'd been to all of the galleries. I kind of had some spare time, and I was like, you know what? There's some big shops here. I'm gonna buy some clothes. I'm gonna buy some actual trousers. And I went into a shop called Forever 21, which I've never heard of before. And well, as someone who didn't go to shops, but I'd never seen it, so I'm not sure if it's a particular shop that's particular to Glasgow or very certain cities. But I went in there and it seemed quite cheap and probably not ethical. And the men's collections of clothes were really good, and I got 2 pairs of trousers, including the pair of mustard yellow trousers, which are amazing. I spent this whole time looking for these trousers and it just hadn't happened, and then boom, the first shop that was a normal shop, and there they are in their glistening form. But as well as that, I bought they were red, like a red with like a hint of orange, and they were amazing. They were like a jean type, like twill cotton trouser that was quite fitted. They fitted me really well. They looked so good. They looked really good, you know, from like knee to foot. That looked like bunched up in such a good way, and they were amazing. I loved them so much, and I wore them out so quickly because I cycle a lot, and so the crotch was like, and also my legs are set quite closely together, so walking or cycling with trousers, the crotch just goes. And I patched them up, and then they'd split again, and I darned them, and then that split, and they were amazing. And then I think I wore them so much that they started to smell too much as well, and I don't think I can get the smell out. So I've always been a fan of the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and it's always been somewhere I'd love to be, and just such a good place. And when I moved to university in Huddersfield, which was very close to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, I became a member straight away. I knew you could get into the private views, go to see the exhibitions, get free wine, and I just, it seemed like such a good idea. So I was at Private View of Cause, who is they're kind of more a graffiti artist that kind of became sculpture, and they look at a lot of like characters in Disney and in like children's things, and then taking that with a kind of graffiti aesthetic. So I really like them, and I kind of was just there. I'd not heard of them before I was there, just because it was a private view and it seemed quite interesting. And so yes, we arrived, me and my friend, there was a free coach from Wakefield, and we got on that coach. But by the time the coach got there, the actual gallery was to capacity, so we had to stay in the little tent they'd put up outside with the drinks and the nibbles and things like that. But this tent, it was quite wobbly, like the floor wasn't that sturdy, and so they had these tables that were they're like egg timers, but very narrow, and people kept putting their empty glasses, empty champagne flutes full of wine. I'm not sure if champagne flutes with wine in is the best option to drink wine. But they did that, and then so people would put them down, and then as soon as somebody would walk past this wobbly bit of floor, it would hit the bottom of the egg timer table, knock the glass off, and it would smash on the floor. But in such a good way. And every time it happened, every time like somebody put a glass down, I went, like, as soon as I saw the first time it happened, I was like, well, let's not let that happen again. I went over to move it, but every time somebody would knock it off first. And so there was about 3 or 4 glasses that had been knocked over, but every time one did, and one of the staff went to pick something to clean it, then I was on that. They were beautiful. They had, like, the way that they'd broken was so clean and like in line with the sophistication of a champagne flute. It kind of swiveled around, and then you could see how they could be put back together in the wrong way with the 3 or 4 glasses in their parts, but conjoined and creating the what's the thin bit called? Neck. The neck of, so they're joining 2 necks together to create a kind of twisted glass effect. And so they were immediately in my pocket. I have a blazer that has a hole in the pocket, and so you just put stuff in and it just fills the bottom of the blazer. I used to make origami cranes, and then I just keep putting them in, and at the end of the day I'd have this bulge around me. But yeah, so I put all the glasses in, and then the staff would come back and be like, oh, where have all the glasses gone? And me and my friend were like, I don't know. But the people that did see me steal the glasses, they were like, artist classic. Oh, they were really beautiful. And then I took them home, and they were, I put them in another glass I stole from a popular cocktail bar, which their drinks are too expensive, and so I just assumed it included the glass. So these were on my windowsill, and when the light came through the glass with glasses in them, it was beautiful and projected rainbows and the spectrum across the room. Once I woke up, and on my bedroom floor was a polystyrene takeaway container. And this was the remnants of the night that was preceding this morning. And what struck me was there was no photographs that I had taken of that night. And the only memory trigger that I had was this polystyrene takeaway container. And within the container there was the splashes of vinegar, and the salt and some ketchup left over, and all quite a really nice pattern with the crumbs of the chips of the memory of the night, but the memory of the end of the night, the memory that what that night led to was me getting some chips before going to bed. And I really liked that I had a physical reminder of the night instead of a virtual reminder. And then I kind of accumulated a couple of these boxes, not many. I'm not one that generally goes out drinking that much, so it's not something that happened frequently. But I had maybe about 3 or 4, and I was thinking about how I could use them, whether I would display them just as they were, whether I could edit them, I could draw into them, draw from them, embroider or bead or look at them, and I hadn't quite worked it out yet, and so they were just pinned to my notice board just along the bottom. I was 15, I think, and we went to Borth as part of the Woodcraft Folk, which is the UK's cooperative. So I was in Borth, which is a place in Wales, just down up near Aberystwyth on the coast, and we were there with the Woodcraft Folk, which is a UK cooperative, youth-led, youth participatory empowerment organisation for young people in the UK who like cooperation. And I used to be part of this for a long time, since I was about 6, and we were in the 13 to 15 age group, and we'd gone away for the weekend in Porth, and we were staying in the youth hostel, which is right on the seafront, and we were just leaving after spending a weekend there. We'd been to the Centre for Alternative Technology, went to the zoo. Porth has its own zoo. Porth, which is only a street long, has its own zoo. Oh, it's not called a zoo, it's called like an animalarium. Top quality. We'd seen dolphins on the beach. We'd made some sculptures from the seaweed and the stones, and we'd eaten a lot of food and chatted around the fire. We went to the sand dunes, but this was the end. We were just leaving and just having one last sit on the beach, and I suddenly decided that I was going to start collecting stones. I'm from Derby, where I am now, where we are in this residency, and we're really far away from the sea. We are landlocked by 2 counties on every side, and we don't see the sea that much. And so going to the sea, I wanted to keep that memory. I wanted to be like, to try and gather more remnants of the sea. And so I decided to take some stones, maybe start a little rockery on my windowsill, and so a lot of the stones I collected were the kind of quite small ones, and with the intention of now every future beach I went to was to take more stones and to add to this rockery that I then created on my windowsill. But what it did happen was that I didn't go to the sea very often and didn't manage to get any more stones, or if I did go to the sea, didn't remember that I had started this tradition. So the rockery I started was just there, full of spiders by the end and cobwebs, and not the most attractive of places. I did have a little box of like mixed gems that I got from, I think, the Stone Centre in Cromford, works with. So that was kind of scattered within, but it wasn't very attractive, and I never did manage to create any more stones. Where I work, I chop vegetables in a pizza bar in Huddersfield, and we chop all kinds of vegetables for the pizza toppings, peppers, onions, they're the worst, chilies, olives, tomatoes, trying to think of other things, lemons, limes for the drinks, and so specifically I'm going to talk about chilies, and because I think that chilies are the most beautiful. I think a lot of the vegetables that I chop I find fascinatingly beautiful, and how they all are so different, and it takes me longer to chop vegetables than most people in the place, because I'm forever stopping to admire the vegetables or the composition of the ends of the vegetables that the bin has created each second. But the chilies, they are something to talk about. Every box is quite different, and so sometimes you get very straight, very long, very thick, green chilies. Every chili green, very straight, all in an order. And sometimes you get a box that's all over the place. They're curling around each other. There's some that are straight, there's some that are curly, there's some that are green, there's some that are red, some that are orange, somewhere in between. And they're the ones they're the harder to cut, because they're all over the place, but they are the ones that take me longer because of how they look. And I really like, there's a type of chili where it kind of, instead of it being solid on the outside. There's bits where it seems to be punctured into itself, and I really like those ones. They kind of kink outwards and shift and yeah, they're my favourite. And so what's happened is every time I've seen a chili that's particularly beautiful, I've stolen it, slyly put it in my pocket, and now what's happened is I've got quite a large collection of chilies, and a lot of them have slowly shriveled. A lot of them, they turn red. All of them seem to be turning red after whatever stage I get them in. Sometimes they keep their colour, and generally that's the ones that are dead already. So if the end is broken off, those ones will stay the same colour. But if they're still intact, they're any colour, totally green, they will turn totally red and shrivel and dry. And so now on my windowsill next to my bed, there is a large array of chilies of all different sizes, and what's sad is that they lose their beauty as they dry sometimes. Sometimes it improves them, but I think in the moment they are better, and even though I know that they're gonna shrivel, I just keep on doing it. I kept collecting them. I kept going, this one is the one, and now the collection is just too big.